Today we're going to be taking a look at the Altra Lone Peak 6.0, and it is dropping dirt all over my table. Great.
Love the way you ride. Look into my eyes, say you're ready to go. $1 million life, yeah. We could roll the dice. I like you surprised, but you already know.
Hey everybody, welcome back to my channel. I'm Dave from Chase the Summit. In this video, we're going to be taking a close look at the Altra Lone Peak 6.0. If you've been following my channel for any length of time, you may know that I'm kind of all about the Lone Peak line of shoes. I've had the Lone Peak since the 1.0 version, like, I don't know, 7 or 8 years ago, and I just keep buying the latest and greatest Lone Peak because they never really let me down. So that might be a little bit of a spoiler in this video that I'm kind of biased towards these shoes, but I do really like the 6.0, and that's what we're going to talk about in this video today. If you don't know, the Altra Lone Peak line of shoes has kind of become a staple in the ultra running and trail running community. It's really a do-it-all shoe for fast days or even slow days, and even a lot of thru hikers on the Appalachian Trail or the CDT tend to gravitate towards these shoes because they're built well, they're lightweight, they've got good grip. They tick a lot of boxes when it comes to heading out on the trails. And I've been spending a lot of time in the Lone Peak 5.0, which I have here. These are really gross and I apologize for that, but I'm going to show them in this video anyway. So in this video, I want to focus on what they've changed in the 6.0 compared to the 5.0 and a couple of things I don't love for certain reasons. Before we dive into this though, if you find this sort of video helpful or entertaining or fun or anything, make sure you give me a thumbs up and subscribe to the channel down below so you don't miss more videos from me in the future. I would really appreciate that. All right, so what is the Altra Lone Peak 6.0? It's a moderately cushioned trail running shoe. It's got a 25mm stack height, and it's got a really aggressive grip on the outsole. And when it comes to Altra, they're unique in that all of their shoes that they sell have a zero drop platform, which means that the distance from the heel to the ground and the distance from your forefoot to the ground is the same, where in a typical running shoe, you would find that the heel is a little bit elevated. The idea behind this is to give you a more natural stride and to give your legs a bit of a break and be a little bit less fatiguing. And for me, that's absolutely the case, but I know some people who just hate Altra shoes, so definitely try these out in a store before you commit to buying them, because it is an acquired taste when you go for that zero drop platform. Another unique thing to the Altra line of shoes is the foot-shaped toe box. You can see here, it's got kind of a clown shoe look to it, where it's got a nice wide forefoot and kind of a narrow heel. And for me, this really works out great for my feet because I actually have a pretty wide midfoot here, and these shoes can accommodate that, and not many others on the market can. All right, the first thing I want to talk about the Lone Peak 6.0 is going to be the weight of this shoe. The Lone Peak line in general has never been a super lightweight shoe because it does have a bit of cushioning, but they did reduce the weight in the 6.0 by a bit. In my men's 10.5 that I have here on my scale, I got 9.5 ounces, which is actually pretty light because the Lone Peak 5.0 I have here in the same size came in a full ounce heavier at 10.5 ounces. And honestly, when they're on my feet, I do feel the difference just a little bit. The 6.0s definitely feel a little bit lighter. When it comes to the design and looks of the Lone Peak 6.0, it looks very much like the older Lone Peaks. They changed the colors a bit. I've got like the gray blue color here, which I really like because they put these like pink laces in it that make it kind of pop. But they also have a bright yellow orange color that I really like as well. So they definitely nailed the aesthetic. I don't mind the look of these at all. I think they're a good looking trail shoe. In terms of the build quality of the Lone Peak 6.0, it's very similar to the 5.0, but there are some changes. So if you look on the front of the shoe here, there's some big drainage holes, and these are a lot different than what we used to see on the Lone Peak because they're actually like a slot, whereas on the Lone Peak 5.0s, you can see here, the drainage holes are kind of just these little tiny speckled holes around the toe of the shoe, and there's not much around other than that. There's a few in here, but yeah, not a whole lot of drainage on these older 5.0s. When you look at the 6.0s, they've got a lot more drainage up front, and there's some on both sides, and on the midfoot, right in the middle of the shoe here, there's more of the slots adding even more drainage. On top of those drainage holes, the upper of the entire Lone Peak 6 shoe is an engineered mesh that's actually really breathable, and this is a much finer mesh than it was in previous years. All of this ventilation and drainage is a good thing. However, if you're someone like me who uses these shoes in kind of a wet or cold environment, right now it's springtime here in Massachusetts, so there's snow on the ground, there's ice, there's really cold puddles. These shoes do let the water and cold air in a lot quicker than the older 5.0s. I've noticed that out on my runs, my feet just feel a little bit colder in these shoes. That said, these shoes are not designed for cold weather or winter running. It's just how I use them. So I think it makes sense that they added more ventilation to the shoe. It's just something to keep in mind if you're someone like me that kind of uses these shoes as an all-arounder. One welcome addition to the upper is that they actually added more welded overlays around the entire shoe. And one area in particular around the outside of the midfoot here is that in this area, I would always find tearing, or it would start to fray over time because it's actually where I rub a lot of rocks when I run by. And so far, these are holding up pretty solid. So it's good to see that they added more reinforcement here. Now, in comparison to the Lone Peak 5.0 I have here, you can actually see there's some fraying on the 5.0s I have here, but they added that overlay in the same area. So I'm hoping that the durability of the 6.0 does last a little bit longer. I've only had them for a little while, so I can't really comment on long-term durability, but my hopes are high. The lacing system on the Lone Peak 6.0 is very similar to the Lone Peak 5.0 I have here. However, they did make one change that I really like. They got rid of this little gaiter hook that was on the Lone Peak 5.0. This is like a little metal ring, and your lace kind of goes through this leather area, and that metal ring is for a gaiter to hook onto. On the Lone Peak 6.0, you can see that they got rid of all of that. And what they did is they actually put an area for the lace to go through the upper fabric, and actually creates a point where your gaiter can just tie off to without having to add an additional piece of metal. So that probably helped to reduce the weight of the shoe overall. The laces that come on the Lone Peak 6.0 are also different this year. They're a nice flat lace with like a braiding to them, and I found these to be actually super comfortable because there isn't like a ton of stretch in them, so you can get a nice tight fit, and there's enough stretch to provide enough breathability to not feel like you're strangling your foot. And they actually hold their knot a little bit better than on the Lone Peak 5.0. I always had an issue with these coming undone. You can see I actually have like a triple knot in there now, whereas on the Lone Peak 6.0s, the laces seem to hold the knot just a little bit better. Now, in terms of the fit of the Lone Peak 6.0, it's very similar to the 5.0, and they run true to size. So I wear a men's 10.5 in just about every shoe I own. That's no different here. I bought a 10.5 and they feel just about right. The only thing I did notice about the Lone Peak 6.0 compared to the 5.0 is that the wide toe box area feels like it got a little bit more narrow, but not really in a bad way. It still feels like there's enough room in there, and it hugs my foot just right. So there's not a whole lot of slipping or anything like that. It's still a wide toe box, but it feels just slightly more narrow. Another minor change in terms of the fit is that it feels like there is reduced padding around the ankle of the shoe. It's not a bad thing. I feel like there's still a lot of padding in here, and the tongue also feels like it just got a little bit thinner, but overall it's a very comfortable fit, and it feels just like all of my other Lone Peaks, so it's not really totally different. The Lone Peak 6.0 still features Altra's Gaiter Trap, which is a Velcro flap in the back of the shoe here. This is for connecting Altra's Gaiter or any third-party gaiter. And like I said before, the laces take up the other half of that, so that's where you connect the front of the gaiter. Another new addition to the Altra Lone Peak 6.0 is this new pull tab on the back here, and this is one of the better pull tabs I've tried on just about any shoe. You can fit your entire finger in there and get a nice secure grab. Okay, now let's talk about the ride of the Lone Peak 6.0 and how it compares to the older Lone Peak models. Honestly, it's very similar to the 5.0. Altra used the same Ego midsole on the 6.0, and that means it's got really nice cushion, but it also feels really responsive. For me, I'm not a super fast trail runner, so this is a nice balance of having cushion and also feeling like you can feel the trail a bit more. This is not a max cushion shoe, but I have used it for like ultra marathons and things like that, just because it's kind of got the best of both worlds. It's got a little bit of spring in it, but if you do hit that, sharp rock or something like that, it does have an integrated stone guard inside to take that up and not, jab into your foot. And overall, this is a very flexible shoe, so it doesn't really feel like you're standing on a platform or anything like that, even though it does have that integrated stone guard. Overall, I do enjoy the ride of this shoe. It's a pleasant ride. It's got enough cushion, but it also feels responsive enough to run fast if that's your thing. Now let's talk about traction on the Lone Peak 6.0. I apologize for the gross outsole on this shoe, but I've been wearing the shoes. Sorry. This is something I found really interesting because the outsole looks nearly identical to the Lone Peak 5.0. They're still using what they call their trail claw, which has these kind of arrow-shaped lugs on the bottom. It is a very aggressive outsole, but even though this looks identical to the older outsole, it feels like the rubber they used is a little bit more sticky. So when you're in like wet conditions or in like dusty conditions, the trail claw on the Lone Peak 6.0 feels like grabs just a little bit better. That's just my experience so far. They might be the same thing, I don't know. Finally, let's talk about durability on the Lone Peak 6.0. As I said before, I've only had these shoes for a couple of weeks. I've only got about 20 to 30 miles in on these, and so far they're holding up well. I don't expect them to fail at 30 miles. The only concerning area I have on these shoes is going to be outside of my pinky toe here, because that's historically where all of my Altras tend to fail over time. I keep buying them because they fit my foot so well and they are so comfortable for me, and I just put up with the shoe kind of failing a little bit early in this area. I'm hoping that the welded overlays on the 6.0s hold up better in terms of durability over time, but only time will tell. And I'll make sure to have a follow-up video if anything changes drastically on these, like if they totally fall apart. I'll definitely update you in a video down the road. All right, let's talk final thoughts and pricing. The Lone Peak 6.0 comes in at $140 in both men's and women's sizes. And who is this shoe for? I think anybody who's in the Altra line of shoes and maybe using a Lone Peak, this is kind of a no-brainer update. It feels like it's kind of a minor update. They only did a few tweaks here and there, like adding the new breathability, the new mesh, and the new drainage holes. Other than that, by and large, this feels much like an Altra Lone Peak 5.0. It's just an iterative change this time around. It's not a major overhaul. That said, I do still think the Altra Lone Peak 6.0 is going to be a go-to shoe for a lot of trail runners, hikers, thru hikers, people who just enjoy this line of shoe. It's kind of a no-brainer update for me. On the other hand, if you're not in the Altra ecosystem, should you buy the Lone Peak 6.0? Maybe. I would say you should go to a store and try on the shoe before committing to it, because that zero drop platform can take some getting used to. Another thing to keep in mind is for those longer miles, if you're running 100-mile ultra marathons or something like that, there is the Altra Olympus, which is a step up from here. It's a more expensive shoe, but it does provide more cushioning compared to the Lone Peak 6.0. And that's generally what I've been reaching for the longer miles when I go out on trail runs. Anyways, I think we've run to the end of this video, and now I want to hear from you. Are you interested in the Lone Peak 6.0? And if you are, let me know why. Are you just an Altra person and this is the natural line of progression? Or is this something entirely new for you? Let me know in the comments down below. I would love to hear from you. Okay, that's kind of it on the Lone Peak 6.0. We've reached the end of this video, and if you made it this far, you probably enjoyed it, so you should probably hit that thumbs up and subscribe button down below so you don't miss more videos from me in the future. And as always, if you're planning on picking up a pair of Altra Lone Peak 6.0s, I'll have links down below that do help support my channel, but they cost nothing extra to you, so go check them out. All right, I'm gonna stop dribbling dirt all over my desk now and put these away. Hope you enjoyed this video, and I will see you next time. Bye.